Creating and writing your program review using eLumen in 4 parts. This is part 3. The purpose of part 3 is to show you how to create a resource request. When we left off in part 2, we were in the scheduling office template for our program review for this cycle in the design mode. But just in case you're starting here fresh, when you first log into eLumen, it will look like this. It'll have you as your department role and the department that you're working with. So you're on the Strategic Planning tab, and then you identify the initiatives. Again, if you did not do the first 2 parts, you will want to go back and do part 1 and part 2 before doing part 3. So here on initiatives, you scroll down to the bottom and you click on the link to your department and the cycle. Again, ignore this material at the top. And when you first come into the initiatives, you will by default be in active mode. So you'll want to see this button here at the top. It'll say to design mode. You want to stay there. So as long as you can edit content on this page, then you're in the right place for part 3. So here we're going to add a resource request. So what you're going to do is you're going to scroll to the section where you have the flag and the arrow. So remember, you want to look for the section that has a flag and an arrow on the right at the header of this section. And again, for instructional areas, you might need to scroll down a couple of sections to see both the flag and the arrow. When you're there, you just click on the link, and it should appear with your objective or your goals that you had identified previously. And this might look familiar if you watched part 2. This is where you want to click on Align Action. Okay, if you don't see this, then maybe you've missed a step in one of the prior videos. So go back and review those again. So here you're going to want to click on Align Action and then Create New Action. You shouldn't have any existing ones, so you want to create a new action. All right. And for my new action, you want to put in a recommended action. And for this case, I think we would want to put in the language of an objective. So I'm trying to remember what that language is here. So hold on a second. I think it was ensure publication of schedule and catalog. That's an abbreviated version because I don't recall what the exact wording was, but I'm just going to put that in there. I'm going to copy it also. And the action type is a resource request. There's only one choice there, so you can just leave that as the default. And then down here on the bottom is a button that says, a link that says add a resource request. So click on that, and then you get a couple more choices. So for the resource name, there's not really a resource associated with this action, but if there were, I'm just going to make one up here. I would use the same language that I have in the recommended action, or it might be something like hire a part-time employee to create the schedule. That's the resource name. So I'm looking to hire an employee. So then my resource type is an additional staff request. But it could be also an additional faculty, equipment new, hardware new, software new. It could be a facility request. It could be a non-teaching compensation request, equipment replacement, hardware replacement, or software replacement. So pick the correct category for your resource request. Mine's additional staff. And then in the box below that's not labeled, what you want to put in here is a complete description. I'll just type that in there, and your justification. So that's what you want to make sure that you type in this box. Assume that whoever is reading this doesn't know anything about what you're needing to do. And so the more complete that you are, the more supportive it will be for the readers of your request. And they won't need to come back and ask you what the request is about. It's also helpful to include contact name if there are additional questions that need to be asked. So I'm not going to put in my actual description and justification. I'm just going to leave that there for you to see what we need here. If there were additional resource requests associated with the action, you can add another resource request here too, like that, or delete it if you don't want it. So an example of that might be a project that has multiple parts to it. So maybe it has some hardware parts, it has some software parts, it has some facility needs. So I'm thinking about a technology project. Then you might have 3 resource requests here. So maybe it's something like, create a mobile lab. It's very common. There might be multiple parts to that. So just make sure you do it all here. I'm just going to leave it with one. When you're done completing that part, then you just click Add New Action. And then you can see here that my recommended action is to ensure publication of schedule and catalog, and I have 1 resource request for it. Okay. If you have multiple goals that this action is a part of, just enter it in one of them. You don't need to enter it all of them. Just pick one and put it there. Okay. When you are done, you can add another one, but if not, you can click Save. And that is all there is to making that resource request. We will cover how to add the budget for that in the next video. So for now, adding that resource request is all you need to do. And so then you can notice here in my flag and my arrow, the flag says that I have 1 goal and I have 1 resource request. And that concludes part 3 of creating a resource request.